My fiancé canceled our venue behind my back because his parents were offended by equality, leading to the collapse of our 3-year relationship. I never imagined my engagement would end over a venue bill and family politics. Yet here I am, 32 years old, a marketing executive in Portland, trying to pick up the pieces of what was once my future. 3 months ago, my partner of 3 years, James, proposed during our weekend trip to the coast. We'd been living together for most of our relationship, and marriage felt like the natural next step. We set a date for early spring, just 4 months away, wanting a small but elegant ceremony at a historic brewery downtown that we both loved. My parents, thrilled about their only daughter getting married, immediately offered to cover the venue costs. Everything seemed perfect until 8 weeks before the wedding. James came home from work unusually quiet, and after dinner he dropped a bombshell that I still struggle to comprehend. "I don't think your parents should come to the wedding," he said, avoiding eye contact. I nearly choked on my tea. "What are you talking about? They're paying for the venue. My father is walking me down the aisle." "My parents had a conversation with me yesterday. They said your parents were disrespectful at our family dinner last month. They're very upset about it." This made absolutely no sense. My parents were the epitome of politeness, university professors who spent their careers navigating academic politics. They weren't the type to cause drama or offend others intentionally. "That's ridiculous," I countered. "What exactly did they supposedly do?" James shifted uncomfortably before explaining that while he and I were momentarily absent from the dinner table, our parents had gotten into a disagreement about gender roles. Apparently, my parents had laughed when his mother praised me for upholding traditional values by doing all the cooking and housework. They'd mentioned our equal division of household duties and expressed their belief in balanced partnerships. "My parents were deeply offended," James concluded. "They feel your parents disrespected their values." The revelation left me speechless. This was about my refusal to be the sole housekeeper while working full-time? About sharing responsibilities with my partner? If his parents were this upset about such a thing, what did that say about James's expectations after marriage? Our first major argument erupted that night. When James wouldn't budge on his stance, something petty but satisfying came over me. The next morning I forwarded the venue invoice directly to his parents with a simple note. "Since you've decided my parents shouldn't attend despite their generous offer to pay, I assume you'll be handling this expense instead." James called me at work, furious. "My parents showed me what you did. You had no right to put them on the spot like that. And they had no right to ban my parents from our wedding," I shot back. "If they want that kind of control, they should pay for it." For 3 days, our apartment became a battlefield of tense silences and heated exchanges. On the 3rd night, exhausted from the conflict, I suggested canceling the wedding altogether. To my surprise, James apologized, seemingly sincere. He acknowledged his parents were being unreasonable and promised we'd work through it together. I believed him, grateful that we could still salvage our relationship and wedding. What I didn't know was that James had already made his decision. 5 days later, I returned from a work conference to find him waiting with an expression I couldn't quite read. "I canceled the venue reservation," he announced casually. "We'll have the ceremony in the backyard instead. Since there's no venue cost now, we don't need your parents' money or their attendance." The calculated coldness of his plan stunned me. Our landlord would never approve a backyard wedding, and the space could barely fit 10 people comfortably. But that wasn't the point. James had gone behind my back, undoing our joint decision without consultation, all to please his parents. "You can't be serious," I whispered, my voice trembling with anger and disbelief. "Dead serious," he replied. "After the way you insulted my parents by sending them that bill, I've been reconsidering everything." When I threatened to call off the wedding, he laughed. "Go ahead. I was only waiting for the venue cancellation to go through before ending things myself." "These past few days?" Just buying time until I could get even for what you did to my parents. 3 years of loving this man, and he could discard me so easily over family politics and wounded pride. I packed a suitcase while he watched impassively from the couch, not once attempting to stop me. 2 hours later, I was sobbing in my childhood bedroom at my parents' suburban home, trying to make sense of what had happened. That night, after calming down enough to speak coherently, I explained the situation to my parents. Their faces revealed shock, then anger on my behalf, and finally a confession. They told me about the dinner conversation that had apparently triggered everything. "We had no idea it would cause such problems," my mother explained. "His mother made a comment about how pleased she was that you were doing all the cooking and housework. When we mentioned you two shared those duties equally, they seemed deeply offended. We didn't think it was worth mentioning. We assumed your relationship with James was based on your shared values, not his parents." Their explanation brought clarity but no comfort. If James sided with his parents on something as fundamental as equal partnership, what other traditional expectations would he enforce after marriage? The relationship I thought we had, supportive, balanced, modern, was apparently not the one he or his family envisioned. A week later, I returned to the apartment to collect my belongings. James barely acknowledged my presence until I was about to leave. Even then, he only wanted to discuss splitting the minimal wedding expenses we'd already incurred. No apology, no real conversation, just a cold, businesslike interaction that felt surreal after 3 years together. "Good luck," he said as I headed for the door, a dismissive farewell to our relationship. "You too," I replied, knowing there was nothing more to say. For nearly a month afterward, I isolated myself from our mutual friends, working remotely and declining social invitations. Eventually, I had to face reality and inform people about the broken engagement. To most, I simply cited irreconcilable differences, but I confided the full story to my closest friend, Sophia. Sophia and her husband had known James since college. After hearing my account, they were shocked and immediately distanced themselves from him. Apparently, this triggered a cascade of fallout in our social circle. Within days, James was texting me furiously, demanding I fix my smear campaign against him. "You need to post this statement I wrote," he insisted, sending me a carefully crafted announcement that portrayed our breakup as mutual and amicable. "Everyone thinks I'm the villain because of what you told Sophia." "I only shared what actually happened," I replied. "If that makes you look bad, perhaps examine your actions, not my honesty." 2 weeks later, James showed up unannounced at my parents' house, escalating our conflict to a frightening level. When I refused again to post his statement, his composure shattered. He shouted accusations about my intentions to ruin his reputation, claiming I was vindictive because he dumped me. When his tirade culminated in punching the wall, I called the police. The situation spiraled further. His parents launched a crowdfunding campaign for a defamation lawsuit against me, filled with fabricated claims. They sent threatening emails suggesting they'd ensure I ended up in prison for harassing their son. While I had blocked them all on social media, friends kept me informed of their increasingly desperate attempts to vilify me. The final straw came when James posted that my parents had raised me to be a lazy narcissist with no values. That crossed an unforgivable line. I contacted him directly, promising legal action if he didn't remove all posts about me and my family immediately. Something in my voice must have convinced him I wasn't bluffing. The posts disappeared within hours. That was 6 weeks ago. The engagement ring has been returned, the lease transferred solely to James, and I've moved into a new apartment closer to downtown. My friends have been surprisingly supportive, many confessing they'd always sensed something off about James's relationship with his parents, but hadn't wanted to interfere. What I've learned through this ordeal is invaluable. Partnership requires aligned values, not just love. The conflict wasn't really about a venue or an invoice. It was about fundamental beliefs in equality, respect, and independence. James's parents wanted a daughter-in-law who would uphold their traditional gender expectations, and ultimately, James chose their vision over our relationship. Sometimes I wonder if I should have spotted the warning signs earlier. There were subtle moments when James deferred to his parents' opinions or made comments about women's natural caregiving abilities. But love has a way of blinding us to incompatibilities until they become impossible to ignore. Today, as I rebuild my life one day at a time, I'm grateful for the painful clarity this experience provided. Better to discover these irreconcilable differences before marriage than years into a union that would have demanded I compromise my core values. If you're facing similar challenges in your relationship, remember that true partnership means supporting each other's independence and growth. Don't settle for someone who expects you to be less than your authentic self. For more stories about relationships, family dynamics, and personal growth, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us continue sharing these important life lessons.